And that's us. So we are live. Welcome, guys. 2 weeks in a row, we've been on time. Something must be wrong. It must be the fine weather or something. So welcome to our Blether with series. Russell's looking very bright. I love your new setup, Russell. You've got that light in.
I'm blinded. I've got two lights now. I used to be sitting in the dark, but I've got this. I picked up a second-hand Anglepoise sort of detached kind of thing that I can clip onto stuff now. But it's actually blinding me. It's like sitting under the floodlights at Pataudry. I've got to remember to not look at it.
Yeah, you got a sun lamp. You got tan while you're working. So we've got Phil on. Good evening, Phil, one of our regular watchers.
Hi, Phil.
Let us know what you've got in your glass. So tonight's guest, Iain McAlister, from the Glen Scotia Distillery, the master distiller. By title, I'm sure he does a lot more than just the distiller side of it, which we will find out about over the next hour. Feel free to ask any questions. Good evening, Tamara. Good evening, David. Coming in. Great to see you. Let us know what's in your glass. Have you poured a Glen Scotia specifically for tonight? If not, don't worry. We know there's loads of other great drams out there.
David's a Campbeltown boy, so he's well up for Campbeltown tonight.
He is, yeah. So we've got the fan base already. We've got the great the followers coming on. So I don't think you're not in Campbeltown anymore, though, David. Are you further north? I won't tell anyone where you stay. So we've got Mirko from Germany coming on. Phil's got the 2021 Malt Festival in his glass. Absolute stunning whiskey, isn't it? Beautiful.
As have I.
We have Tamara in a dram of Cask 17-1067.
Oh, nice.
2019. We'll have to see if Iain remembers that. So without further ado, let's bring Iain on, and we'll have a wee chat, see what's in his glass, and any questions, guys, ping them out. Let us know what you want to find out. So let's bring. It's great when technology works, isn't it?
Absolutely. Hi, Iain.
Hi, guys.
Hello there. Hi, everyone.
You doing well?
I'm good. Yes, absolutely. So Thursday, so it can't be too bad. Getting there again. Another weekend.
Not the weekend, really, Thursday, isn't it? It is for us. Getting a dram with the Blethers, I suppose. It's always good. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's good to chill, isn't it? And it's good to have a dram, and just relax. It's fantastic. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I think I might open a window. It's getting quite toasty in here. But,
He's getting stuffy in Inverurie. What's it like in Campbeltown today, Iain? Is it a nice day down there?
It is, the weather, and we seem to be getting dare I say, the best of it, which is most unusual. As you know, we probably get our fair share of precipitation down
yes,
here.
Indeed. Yeah.
We seem to be missing it all. There seem to be a lot of showers over the last wee while that we're totally missing. So yeah, it's
the East Coast this weekend is meant to be dinging. The East Coast is meant to be dinging it down.
That's right. I think I think it was James, the Whisky Shop in Tarbert, had a picture on, and it was raining in Tarbert. So you're only talking a few miles away, but yeah, it's been really quite good, really kind of complain weather-wise this summer. So
David said you beat the Campbeltown drizzle.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's never far away, gloom and doom.
The Campbeltown drizzle, I like that. That sounds like something you need some ointment for or something, I don't know.
The Campbeltown drizzle.
Like cocktail, like social old-fashioned or something. Also, you put over a steak or something like that.
That sounds nicer. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
That's it. Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, we're just chatting before we went live there about how the virtual scene, and obviously we met you at the Glen Scotia vertical tasting we had for the shop a month ago, something like that.
Yeah, maybe about that. Yeah.
So how is it being for you? Because obviously it's not your first. That wasn't your first tasting virtually. How have the last kind of 16, 18 months been for you? Have you seen it change over the course of that time?
Oh, I mean, and it's kind of maybe wrong to use the word a breath of fresh air, because it's been tough for a lot of people, and it really has, and it's been an awful time. But work-wise, for myself, yeah, it really has. It's been a certain enlightenment about it, because probably I've met more folk and chatted to more folk than normally, guys. So it's been absolutely wonderful. It's opened up a whole new avenue of opportunities, and before potentially you couldn't manage to go to Germany or whatever places like that. So now you can. So so there's no excuse now. So yeah, it's been really, really good. And it's kept everything, it's kept the industry, I guess, alive to a certain respect, regards to these tastings and keeping in touch with people. And I guess it's not even the virtual tastings, it's communications, mobile communications, whether it's Twitter, whether it's, anything like that, I think is really, really helpful on the whole, it really does, so it's, yeah, I've obviously loved every minute of it. I really have. So,
have you found an increase in interest in Glen Scotia, for example? I mean, have you found you've actually got a kind of bigger fan base, been able to reach out a bit further than you normally would be able to?
Yeah, I would say over the piece probably, and it's kind of hard to really pin everything down, Russell. But I would say over the piece, probably sales have been probably stronger than they were before. So, and it's obviously a combination of people being at home, and it's a combination of people not traveling. But as you say, it's probably a small percentage of actually, doing these tastings, and it's not just me. It's obviously the wider team, which have obviously delivered that. They've really done well. So yeah, it's been good. But I think that's whiskey, isn't it? Whiskey's. When there's that many folk that just, love whiskey, they're so engaged in whiskey. So, it's going to work. It will work.
Yeah, I think a large part of it as well. It's such a, it's certainly not a drink that's promoted to be drunk to be drunk kind of thing. It's an enjoyable dram. It's something you say. I think that lends itself to the idea of sitting and drinking at home. I think if you said to somebody, "Oh, I'm going to drink at home," and it's a vodka tasting or a Jose Cuervo tequila tasting and stuff, folk would think a bit mental. But because it's whiskey or even gin or wine, these kind of categories, people are thinking, okay, so it's just it's more relaxed, it's more of a second savor, because you're going to be talking about it a lot more than you're going to be drinking it. I think it has lent itself to that kind of community spirit where you're not sitting drinking at home to get hammered. You're sitting at home to learn about the whiskey. I think that comes across well.
Absolutely, and it could be us. It could be, we could be next door here in Campbeltown, or we could be, it could be someone in Asia or Australia, or it's a global phenomenon, isn't it? Whiskey's absolutely amazing, and it's something. Even for people that's, getting into it, I've talked to a lot of people saying, well, I don't really know much about whiskey, but I'm trying different ones. And I thought, all right, that's another one,
That's it, yeah. Hooks.
That's it. Well, once it gets a grip of you, that's it. There's no going back, and it's not something you can just walk away from. Whiskey's absolutely amazing in that respect. So it's great to see.
Passion. Really. It's an absolute passion, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is, Russell. It is a passion. Whether you work in it or whether you're just a fan, or whether you're just an occasional drinker. It is something that is a passion, and as Mike says, it's got that appeal. Whether it's the distillery, whether it's the history, whether it's the way the process is at that distillery, or whatever whatever aspect. Yeah. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
So do you find yourself skipping to work in the morning? Is it kind
of? Yeah, well, I'm incredibly privileged. I really am. I totally get that. It's never have, and I used to have the, oh God, work again, and it's only Wednesday. You don't get that in whiskey. You really don't. You don't. And I guess if you did get that in whiskey, then probably again
Time to leave. Yeah.
It's time to move. But yeah, I fantastic. It really is. And I enjoy every day. Because every 2 days are not the same. So yeah, it's.
Where did
great.
you get the what started it all off for you?
Well, I think when I think back. Early days of whiskey, whiskey was probably a rarity for me when I was younger, because you never really seen whiskey that often, about the house or that. Whiskey was, and I don't know whether rose tinted glasses, but whiskey was more a New Year drink. Give my age away, I guess,
You're in good company.
Well, that was. That's the way it was, So you never really seen whiskey as a rule. Even growing up, I used to, you try a dram or two, and yeah, it was good, And it was one of the first whiskies I think I tried was a fella I was best man for, and I always mind. And he stayed in a farm, lovely family, And one of the first drams they gave me was a whiskey, And it was a big bumper, and I sitting there in the chair, and I'm thinking, right, what do you do with this then? I take it I need to drink all this. So yeah, it was obviously tentative steps, early days, and the historical aspect was always there for me. I always loved the association, whiskey and what it was all about, and obviously Campbeltown. Campbeltown had a huge association with whiskey, so it was, it was something that probably got me, involved in it. And then, yeah, the engineering side kind of followed on, and then, yeah, before you know it, I'm working at Glen Scotia. So it really was, and I often say that to people today, probably if I did the same scenario, and I wanted to start at Glen Scotia, and absolutely, I've been there 14 years now, but you never get the chance now because the industry's moved on so much even in 14 years. So there's no way I would get that opportunity nowadays. So hence why, I really feel privileged. The job I do, incredibly lucky. So yeah, wonderful. It's wonderful.
David's got a wee comment on about the Campbeltown, like the high street in Campbeltown was at one point the most wealthy street in Britain, with the 3 distilleries in close proximity.
Yeah, absolutely. That was yes, that's right. No, it was actually Glebe Street, seemingly, David. So Glebe Street. I wish it was High Street because that's where Glen Scotia is. But High Street, where Glen Scotia is, was Dallintober, and a lot of people know that, obviously, if they're from the Campbeltown or whatever. But obviously, Dallintober area. And you had Glen Scotia, you had Dallintober Distillery, you had Loch Ruin, and there was another small one that never really hung about for long. But when you go over the other end of Campbeltown, and believe it or not, there's another 2 distilleries in Campbeltown, but yeah, I bet you never knew that.
Oh, I never heard that.
So you go over to Springbank and you go over to Glengyle, and Glengyle's, they're both actually situated really on it, excuse me, and that's Glebe Street. So Glebe Street, obviously, about the turn of the century, the last century, 1900s, had the name of the wealthiest street in Britain, and that was, I think that was really due to the stock it was lying in bond there. There was obviously a lot of bonded warehouses over that area, so it was. And that was probably it coming to the end of its, its end of its power, if you like. So yeah, wonderful.
It's so rich in history, for whiskey, especially, like you said, at the turn of the 1900s. There was 30, 35 distilleries.
Yeah.
Capital of the world, phenomenal kind of success, and then all of a sudden
it's absolutely. You're right, Mike. And it was, and everyone obviously goes on about the distilleries, 35, 27 plus, whatever. But they forget that it was obviously distilleries in Campbeltown before that point, and the names have not survived to my knowledge. All these distilleries that were here, there'd be small affairs. But these distilleries would be operating really, the late 18th century, really. There would be some legal, there would be some illegal, there would be spread about the whole of Kintyre Peninsula. There would be, a mix of smuggling, a mix of these stills. But some of them would have been legal to the point that probably they really couldn't operate anyway. This taxation regime that was in the go at the time. So yeah, you're right. When you get into probably the early 19th century, 1817 was the first legal, or the first of the modern legal distilleries in Campbeltown, and it was Campbeltown Distillery. And I think Campbeltown was really, when you consider a small town, the west coast of Scotland, nowadays it's incredibly remote. Then it was obviously well connected due to the maritime travel and etc. But it was really that wealth that was generated, guys. That wealth that was obviously generated in Campbeltown, and that before distilling, the herring fisheries, etc. That's what really was the impetus for all these distilleries to, come online. So remarkable, really. A town that's really only nowadays 5,000. Then it's very zenith would have been 9,000. So amazing.
Are many of the buildings kind of still there from some of the old distilleries, or are they all completely gone?
No, they're there, Russell. There is quite a few intact buildings. Obviously, when you consider the working distilleries, they're the main ones. But when you consider the ones that have obviously closed in the 1920s, 30s, Benmore's quite intact. It's obviously the bus garage now. It was bought by the Craigs in the 1930s. So it's quite reasonably intact. I mean, there's no equipment or anything like that in it, but it's, structurally, you can still make out it's a distillery. There's certain warehouses, Lochend warehouse has now got a roof on it. Hazelburn, obviously, the association with the Japanese whiskey industry, it's quite intact as well. Again, but it's lost most of its, as you say, distilling structure.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is, and there's areas, there's walls and whatever. The place.
I was down 2017 at the Springbank School, and it coincided with the Campbeltown Festival, and we had a tour around the town with Frank McCarthy, and he took us in, and it was just a shell of an old distillery, and I found an old wooden mallet. So that was in the bag in a way. That's sitting up in my office. But amazing to find that, and a bung with the cloth as well. The Hessian cloth we found in the old warehouse. One of the other guys took that. So, great to see these
thieving buggers.
I wondered where my mallet went.
I'll reclaim it. I'll reclaim it and take it down when I come down here. Is it a reward?
No, you're right, and I'm probably thinking you were probably the one next to what was Tesco's now, which was Lochhead, and that was Lochend bonded warehouse. No, I'm trying. That was a fantastic, and it still is. It's got a lovely facade on it, a beautiful building. That was, they took the roof off it, stopped. So obviously the tax regimes, rates or whatever at that time, it was criminal, absolutely criminal. But there's actually a famous picture that was taken outside that, and I'll try and send it on to you so you can share with anyone that's interested. But there's a famous photograph. It was taken by Paul McCartney's wife at the time, Linda McCartney. It must be the early 70s, I think. And it's of the guys coming out of there. There's about 3 or 4 of them. And it's absolutely wonderful picture because it's very atmospheric. It's the guys are obviously the end of the shift, and I think she was passing, she stopped, she caught them, took a picture, drove off again. But some of them are kind of, you can see 1 or 2 of them, they're quite happy to pose, but you could see 1 or 2, they're kind of, I'm ready to go home. And it's wonderful, wonderful. When you look at the faces and you look at the, just an action shot, as it were. It's a great picture, and some of the guys obviously are still around, so it's amazing picture. But no, that's what it would be, Lochend.
Yeah.
Is there a desire? Just on that kind of subject, is there a desire to kind of open up another, now that whiskey's kind of back on its feet again, and things are looking good? Is there a desire for it to grow a little bit in Campbeltown again? And is there room for more distilleries, or do you think you've kind of maxed out with the three just now?
No, I think it's I think it's it's certainly the potential. Hi Kate, I see Kate there. Hi Kate. I think it's got the potential to grow. I think obviously Campbeltown, as a region is probably there's probably room for more distilleries in Campbeltown. When you see obviously distilleries appearing in other places, I think probably Campbeltown would be a good place to obviously develop that idea. And I think obviously the history and everything that's here is obviously a ready-made, foundation for a potential distillery. So yeah, I think it's
the tasting. That probably the whole peninsula of Kintyre could be brought into the Campbeltown region, couldn't it? So you could have Tarbert, or you could have the top of the peninsula.
I don't know if it is. I'm not sure on that, but I think you might be right with that. I think potentially the whole of Kintyre could be, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on that right enough. So
you may be crossing ancient battle lines there, Mike. You've got to be careful what you say.
Well, look, so when Campbeltown was in its heyday, or even previous to that, when the taxes came out, was Campbeltown classed as a lowland region in terms of the tax, or was it taxed as a highland? Because it was different tax rates, wasn't it?
Aye, that's a very good question. I'm trying to think. I think it changed at some points. I think it was one and it changed to another. But I can't quite remember what it was, Mike. But yeah, there was different. There was a different regime here, and it's it did change, I think. And I can't quite remember when. But yeah, it was obviously, and it was quite heavily manned. Obviously HMRC at that time, the gaugers, the officials were obviously here en masse, because I think they were quite a rebellious lot down here. So you needed a lot of keeping in hands. So.
I imagine you would know, if you were living there, you'd know when the excise men were coming, because you would know the ferry time. You know quite well in advance and be able to stash anything you didn't want to find out quite well.
Well, do you know, it's funny, and there was actually part of the festival with Angus Martin, and Angus is a local author, and he did a fantastic talk about smuggling and illegal. There you go, the history of yep. So well done.
If people see his name and try to pronounce it, I'm sorry, Marco, but I'm not going to.
Absolutely, well done, Marco. No, Angus did a fantastic talk in the smuggling, the history, and that's just, Angus has got a fantastic knowledge, and he's wrote numerous books in the history of Kintyre. But he did a wee talk for us on smuggling, and he gave me one of the books he used. It was an old Kintyre antiquarian book, and I was actually reading it. Last night. By chance, just going through it, and it's some of the cat and mouse. Obviously, you can back here probably before the first legal stills, if you like. So the end of the 18th century, they would obviously have a gauger, and they would have assistants. And there was one occasion, and one of the names mentioned was actually where my family comes from, but it was before they moved in there. It was a small place called. By chance, it's called Grogport, and Grogport is just north of Carradale. Anyway, that's where the McAlisters were toward mid 1860s, the 1880s to about the 1920s. Anyway, before that, there was I can't remember the fella's name. Maybe I better not mention any name anyway. But there was obviously occasion where he had a illicit still, and what got me was obviously that they knew about this. The gaugers knew about this, so they travelled and they documented how he was paid. They had to pay the gauger, they had to pay the assistant. So he went up in May time to try and catch him. They couldn't catch him. He was obviously off, had the still, whatever. So that was fine. So they came back the next month, same again, couldn't catch him. And it went on, I think, for about 3 or 4 months, same thing. And this was documented in the book. They went up, couldn't catch him, he took off. So eventually, I think they caught him, and whatever happened, I don't know. But it shows you the cat and mouse that was going on at that time, with producing, the whiskey at that time. So it was fascinating. It was commonplace. I guess you had to produce that stuff to keep your family alive, to pay the rent, it's absolutely wonderful. Wonderful stories, Kintyre is just ideal for it because it's remote.
Yeah.
It just makes life sound so boring these days, doesn't it? We're not trying to make illicit stuff on the run all the time, hiding in the hills and stuff.
That's right, and it's something, these stills were obviously, and again, Robert Armour and Son, the famous Campbeltown coppersmiths. I mean, his books, 1812, I think his books start from. His books catalogue all these stills, all the stills. You would sell a still to Mr. McAlister or whoever, and he would pay X amount for this still, and it would be so many gallons, it would be a small still, a small still. And they would obviously, they would use it to obviously make illicit whiskey, to, as I say, pay the rent. I think even, that's obviously, as I say, it's maybe hard to for folk to visualise Kintyre, but Kintyre is a long peninsula, and that was in the east side. But even in the west side, it was the same scenario. There were obviously it's quite a hotbed up further north in Kintyre, illicit distills, and they're obviously carrying a lot of it over the hills down to Grogport and onto ships, for obviously heading to the Ayrshire coast or whatever. So it's. So
Grogport didn't have any basis in the actual term grog, then, did it? I mean, was that? It didn't originate from there at all, did it? Is that a kind of? Does that sound too fantastical, maybe?
I think it's kind of. I don't think anyone really knows, to be honest with you. I mean, the obvious thing is, there was obviously quite a bit of smuggling of rum and such like before that, with tea and such, whatever. So I think there was. It could have well originated, on the obviously that era, but. It's more Garahidge. Garahidge Bay is the right name for it, but it's Grogport it's called nowadays. So,
David's waded in with those Cardalians. And Mike, I told you, we don't want to get involved in a civil Mulligan Campbeltown Peninsula wars here.
That's it. Always up to no good, these Cardalians.
I've just opened the 11-year-old. This double sherry. And yes. For those of you, if you're watching that, we're on the tasting that we had. I turned up late because I was doing another tasting. I didn't get to try any of the drams. Russell took them all home with him, so I had nothing to try. So this is my first time on the double fit. And just to show that we're not here to promote, this is the last bottle we had in the shop. It's still got the price tag with it, so you can't buy it from us now. We're gonna have to try and get some more in.
Well, we sold out the Victoriana. We could have sold out more.
Yeah,
following the tasting, yeah.
I've been drinking. I've been drinking some of that. Can you see that?
Oh yes, the Scotch, is it?
Yeah, the Scotch. Yeah, so that's lovely. And I'll tell you another nice one I've had is this one. Don't know whether you've seen any of that.
Well, I've not seen that.
Lot 40.
Lot 40 cast strength. Where's that from?
Is that
Canadian?
Oh, right. Oh, nice. Okay.
So that's really nice. Really good stuff. So yeah, as I say.
Well, maybe answers a question that Mike usually asks at some point. Is you walk into a bar and there's no Glen Scotia there to buy. You look at the shelf. What sort of thing would you typically go for?
Do you know the honest answer is, Russell? I'll probably go for something I've never had.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just try something different. And that's what it's all about. It's a great group of guys in the town. And it's a kind of unofficial whiskey club, and they often meet. And as I say, they're fantastic. The whiskies and just the chat and the crack, and it's absolutely brilliant, you know. And that's what it's all about, you know. It's just trying different whiskies, you know. It really is, you know. Just if you get that opportunity. And they left me quite a few because I couldn't make it this time, but I've got loads here, you know, different ones. Ardnamurchans, I've got Springbanks, I've got, you know. It's,
Springbank? Where do they make Springbank?
I think it's Paradale, is it? No.
But I think you're absolutely right. It is about trying different stuff. I won't mention any names of sort of YouTube bloggers, but there was somebody on recently saying, basically, he was concerned about supplies, and he was saying if you really, really like a whiskey, buy cases of it and put it away. And I thought about that, and I thought about one or two of my favourite drams, and I thought, you know what, if I had a couple of cases of them, I'd probably get really, really fed up of it, of the same dram. I think it's all about exploring different ones all the time.
Absolutely, I think that's absolutely, you know. And you know, as I say, I've obviously, you know, I've worked with Glen Scotia for 14 years, you know, and I've got a huge love for it, you know, and I think it's a wonderful whiskey. But you know, I'm not that misguided that there's some fantastic whiskies out there, you know, and it's the only real way is to, you know, you get a lot of people who collect them, and absolutely, you know, and it's a good thing to do as well if that's what floats your boat. But you should try them. You really
absolutely,
as many as you can. It's
a good whiskey, mate. I always drank Jameson's with loads of ice, and that was how I started in the pub. And then, my first introduction to malt, Scotch malt, was Stalwini, 15-year-old. It's sort of really nice and light and elegant and easy to do. My first favourite was Balvenie 10-year-old, the founders.
Yeah.
They discontinued that, so I moved on to the Macallan 10-year-old. New favourite. They discontinued it. So then Glendronach 15-year-old revival. Great favourite. They stopped making that. I'm like, I'm a bloody jinx. So I'm
Mike's not allowed to have a favourite anymore.
Yeah. So they're all.
Well, that's it, you know, and that's, and I think that's, you know, that's back to what we're talking about. That's the beauty of whiskey, isn't it? You know, there's something for everyone, you know, and it's and even when you get to this, I love this whiskey, I drink it all the time. How long will that last? Not long, I dare say, because you will find something else, you know, and you'll move on to that, and you'll obviously appreciate that and how it's put together and the casks and everything about it, you know, really will really, you know, bring that whiskey alive. So, yeah.
It's even evident within a distillery, you might have a favourite of the core range, but I don't think there's any distillery that just produces one whiskey. You have age statements. You've got sherry, treated and onto. Great example. Russell, you've got the festival. Was it last year's festival?
This year's. I've got last year's as well. I managed to. So this is Callum's watching. This is Callum's fault because I was just going to let this one go. I tried it a couple of times in tastings, and of course he posted up that the last few bottles were available at Glen Scotia. So I thought, no, I don't need it. And then he went, and they're gone. And then next post was, there's still a few left at Loch Lomond. I thought, I'm going to have to buy it. I'm going to have to buy it. So it arrived yesterday. I'm glad I bought it because I want to drink more of it. But I got the last two bottles of last year's, the Tawny Port.
Yeah.
From a shop in Stonehaven as well. So I cleaned them out. So yeah, there's some you want to have a bit more of, but yeah.
We'll flip them. Start your video.
Well, that's it, you know, and it's true, you know, and probably now that you've got them, you know, and that's half the battle because you can think, right, I can relax now, and if I want it, I know it's there. But it's when you were trying to get it and you never got it, and you think, God, you know, and that's it, it's gone, you know, because I've got none, you know, I've got none left down here. It went ages ago, so. But yeah, it's good. It really is good, you know, and it's and I think, you know, for us at the distillery, you know, it's fantastic that obviously these whiskies, you know, are so well received, you know, and they're obviously, you know, selling out as quick as that. So, you know, it wasn't that long.
It's great when these ones sell out because you almost talk about them like that great football match that you saw, or that great concert you went to. It'll never be repeated because it's a one-off. And you get this great whiskey, so you're able to kind of reminisce with people. Did you try the 19? Oh God, that was amazing. I've actually got 2 bottles of that. I've drunk them both. You know, that kind of chat is, and people that, oh God, I wish I'd tasted that. It's a fantastic conversation.
conversation. I've actually tasted it. So, talking of that, we're going to bring back to Tamara, who is enjoying a dram. Let's see if you remember this cask 17106-7 from autumn 2019.
Oh, what was the number again? Where?
There we go.
Cask 17106-7.
Yeah, yes. No, wait. Right, 17106. Was that?
So where about the warehouse was that? Was it a second rack or was it by a wall? Was it next to the door?
That's. I'm just trying to think. I think.
What kind of question is that?
That was 2 feet. That was 2 feet from class 560, I think. I'm trying to think. So it was obviously the 106. 106 was there was a wine cask too. And I'm getting confused with 106. I think it's a different number, which is a wine cask. But I think 106-7. It's either a sherry or a wine cask. I actually kind of mind, to be honest.
You have to put us out of the misery, Tamara.
Tell me, Tamara. It must have been a 20 CL, I think, was it? Yeah.
Here we go. Bordeaux. There you go. Yeah, the wine.
Not bad.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought it was a wine, but I wasn't quite sure because I knew that there was similarities with that last number. I didn't think the wine was that number, but yeah, absolutely, yeah, fantastic.
2019, it proves that you haven't been sitting twiddling your thumbs for the last 18 months. That you won't remember that exactly. So.
Well, that's it, and a lot of the numbers do stick in my head. Certain casks, and I think it's just benchmarks, really. Benchmarks my own mind probably rather as anyone else's mind, which obviously kind of sets the standard, I guess, for what we do and how the journeys went for us. So it's been quite a journey. It really has. When you think back how it was, as I say, it was a totally different beast. But it's been wonderful, and that's obviously down to guys like yourself and everyone, Tamara, everyone who's obviously took an interest in Glen Scotia. So it's been, as I say, it's been very humbling. It really has. It's been humbling to see how it's developed, and it's fantastic.
Have you got a favourite part of the process? When you go to work and you say, it's not a job that you go in and think, oh God, it's only Wednesday anymore. It's a job you enjoy, but is there a part that you really look forward to doing or being involved with?
Well, a really good question, Russell, and I think it's kind of developed with me through the career I've obviously had at Glen Scotia. I think obviously initially, and by chance it really started at the beginning. So it started with the malted barley and the mashing process. Obviously trying to get that right with the type of mash tun we've got at Glen Scotia. So by chance that's where it really developed, if you like, that mash tun, that rack and pinion mash tun, trying to get the extractions right, trying to obviously making sure it's operated, we're getting the gravities, everything to the correct level, and that really led on to fermentation, and probably fermentation to up most of the time. It was really quite complex, to the point where obviously you had to visit it obviously at certain periods, because it's not just something when it was a new distillery and you could obviously just experiment all the way. So it had to be done in stages, really. And again, you're looking at the yeasts, different yeast types. We're looking at obviously the pitch levels. We're looking at obviously the wort quantities and time. The generation of these obviously acids, esters, and higher alcohols. So there was obviously quite a lot to that. And I guess nowadays where I'm at is probably the now everything's kind of settled down and the distillery pretty much runs itself, dare I say. It does. Fantastic guys, fantastic team. It's really moving into wood and such like, because that's wood is probably as complex as the whole distillery process put together, the interactions. So, but I guess, that every part of the process or every aspect of the process is totally engrossing. You know, it really catches your attention and it really pulls you in. So, and I'm lucky at Glen Scotia, obviously, the freedom that I've got. So it's wonderful, wonderful.
I just find the whole, the combination of the first part, the distillery work, where you're trying to recreate exactly the same thing every time through timings and volumes and temperatures and everything like that, and then you put it into this wooden vessel, and you're basically like, go and enjoy yourself. Go,
Aye.
Yeah.
And you're right, Mike. You know, and it's obviously something too. You know, and that's where it gets quite complex because you know, and I say this day in day out to people. You know, we could fill 10 casks with Glen Scotia and you make spirit, and these 10 casks are all individual. You know, they're all different. They've all got their own nuances. Absolutely, you can enhance them further where you store them. You know, whether it's in a hot place or a cool place, or it's and it's a bit like fermentation. You know, whether your washbacks are inside or outside, it really makes a difference. And I've obviously found that through the years, and I guess experience teaches you a lot. It really does. You can read obviously a lot of textbooks and whatever, you learn off a lot of wonderful minds. And John Peterson for me was obviously a huge influence in my career at Loch Lomond. But yeah, experience, you know, it's and sometimes it doesn't quite add up, you know. So it's fascinating. Yeah, brilliant.
So we get you know, there's this whole kind of thing on colour at the moment. It's going pretty crazy. You know, dark whiskies seem to fly out, you know, so quick. What's your take on that? Does it play a part in your selection of a cask or the selection of a bottle and the colour of it, or is it purely on flavour?
Purely, you know, colour really, absolutely, colour's lovely, isn't it? You know, it really is. But colour, I'm not going to say it doesn't interest me, but and I think a good example of this was obviously when I started doing heavily peated at Glen Scotia. So the early days, it was all first fill bourbons for me, absolutely. Now it's a variation of first fill, refill, heavily charred, etc., medium charred. But what really, again, it was one of these benchmarks I was talking about. What really highlighted this to me was a first fill bourbon. It was heavily peated, and it was the heaviest peated that we'd ever done at a distillery, to my knowledge, in recent times. And it was a wonderful whiskey. It really was. It was incredibly well balanced. It had a wonderful flavour profile, but when you took this whiskey out the cask, it was young, absolutely. You know, I mean, I was looking at this potentially, it was just over 3 years old. But the colour was, I guess, what you would term, you know, peely wally. Yeah. So, but it kind of, you know, when you get by the colour, you looked at the colour, and it's probably, nowadays it's probably in par with a lot of peated whiskies, you know, from that ilk. Bourbon matured peated whiskies are going to be slightly, you know, more peely wally than your average dram, you know, from a bourbon. But it was a flavour profile, you know, really get into that flavour profile, and once it developed, it was absolutely wonderful, you know, really wonderful. And really, that's what matters. At the end of the day, you know, you could have a wonderful, deep, sherry matured whiskey, and it maybe doesn't taste what you're expecting. So yeah, I think really, you know, it's a whole picture. You know, it's a whole picture, and if some parts of the picture don't quite meet your expectations, then I think there'll be, you know, certain parts, i.e. the flavour profile, that would probably, you know, need to come across well. Yeah. But yes,
it's one of my biggest bugbears when we get maybe more so independent bottlers and distillery releases. We get a batch of great whiskies from an independent bottler. There's one Coca-Cola dram or two, and and they just fly. You know, there's no point in unpacking it or putting it on the shelf because it's just going to go. And these poor guys, you see the Peewee Wally colours are sitting on the shelf, kind of unloved and unwanted. And it's just like these guys are great whiskies. It's like it's a shame. It is a.
And that's how it, you know, I totally advocate. You got to try different whiskies. You really have, you know, because it's so educational, you know, and it's taught me so much. And obviously, everyone that's out there, you know, it's a journey, and it's a journey. I think it's you know, it's absolutely fascinating, you know, and that's how it's good, I guess, to be in clubs and tastings and such like. You know, if you don't necessarily need to have a full bottle, but you know, bottles could be shared, or you know, so. Yeah,
sometimes people do fall for the darker whiskies, and sometimes, you know, sometimes they're overwhelmingly sherry. I mean, it's just sometimes with some of these, all your tasting sherry, and it's getting away from the kind of old whiskey thing. But I've got to admit, you know, I still do it. If somebody comes into the shop and looks for a bottle, I'll say, "Oh, look at the colour of this," and I almost feel myself slapping myself. Stop talking about the blooming colour, just talk about the whiskey, because you can't help it sometimes. It's like, oh my god, look at this. But you know, the whiskies I've had most recently, last night I was on a Glen Scotia, a red wine, which was absolutely fantastic. Lovely tint of red about it. No darkness about it at all. Tasted like a sweetie shop. It was like liquid chewits. It's eased the pain of a certain football match, but but yeah, and I think for me, I love. I love just ex-bourbon. Love ex-bourbon whiskey. So.
Yeah. Well, that's it. This, I mean, look at this one. This was one of, and this is one of the bottles. I'll try and not show you what it is. I'll show you you see the colour first.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just totally out of the cask.
Yeah.
That was basically that was a refill American oak that was finished ruby port. You know, for first fill ruby port, and that was part of the warehouse tasting park. And yeah, you know, a lot of that stuff is experimental, I guess. You know,
just brought the jealousy level up a notch or two there.
It's quite good, you know. I've been obviously making a dent in it. So.
You needed to do something to distract us from the football. You know,
This is going. No.
It doesn't happen. It's a very fleeting. Politics of football have got no place in these conversations whatsoever.
So Darren's actually just asked a question. About, you know, he's asking for your opinion on non-chill filtering and adding caramel to whiskies.
Well, this is a Blether, so you can have my personal opinion, I guess. I'm really not for it. I'm really not for either of them. I'm really, you know, I like it as it comes. If it doesn't, and it's what we're talking about colour there earlier, if it doesn't quite match your expectations, then I think that's the way it should be. You know, I really do. I like things to be as pure as they can be. And again, it's not always possible. You know, I totally get it, you know, and understand it, and I work with it, you know, on a day-to-day basis. But my personal take on it is, you know, I prefer things, you know, unadulterated. You know, no messing about with them. And that's probably, Darren, actually why, you know, and that was not too bad. That's why I tend to bottle things at anything above 50%. So if that gives you a flavour of what I'm all about. So I think there's actually one. I think there's one there. Yeah, you go, Oloroso. That's at 59. So, so yes, it's yeah, and that. You know, I guess even though, you know, I'm not a fan, there is a place for it. You know, there is a place for it in the industry, and there's
America's the place for it, isn't it? That's the.
Well, you're right. But I think there is a legitimate reasons for doing it. You know, and I totally get these reasons. You know, and it probably as a business, then it's a difficult one. You know, it's
you're probably one of the people who might have been in this position, and kind of the argument is always, but not so much colouring, but the chill filtration. Is there a difference? And I guess you can only tell the difference if you taste the exact same whiskey, 1 dram filtered, 1 dram non-chill filtered. Have you ever done that and compared the two just to see?
Yes, I have, and yeah, there is a difference. There is a difference for sure. There is a difference, and it's again, it's one of those things that probably 99.9% of people will not really pick up on the difference, but there certainly is. I mean, you're going to have a difference. When you're stripping out what you're stripping out. You're obviously there's certain aspects there that's obviously part of that flavour profile. So with the best will in the world, you're going to obviously detract from the whiskey ever so slightly. So it's a tricky one, as I say. It really is. And it's, as I say, I'm not a fan. I'm really not. And it's something that doesn't really appeal to me at all. But I totally get it. I totally get why it needs to be done. So, but yeah, there is a difference, Mike, for sure. And it's obviously something that's with us and something that always will be with us, I dare say. So maybe not so much with the smaller distilleries. So this is good.
Yeah, I think it is a big brand kind of thing, isn't it? And there's kind of sort of small amount of controversy about my local distillery, which is just down the road from Aberhurder in Aberdeenshire. I won't name it, but people know the geography; they'll be able to figure it out. And they've taken the non-chill filtered label off one of their bottles, so it's not off all of them, just one. And I guess there's the whole thing about a big company owning this particular distillery now, and maybe looking to a different market. But yeah, people sometimes go a little bit over the top about it. And I think, as you say, there must be a difference. But I don't think you should give up on the distillery just because they maybe change their working habits.
No,
just brought out a good point here. And in my mind, and I haven't done that kind of side by side comparison, but in my mind, I think if you do that and write tasting notes for both whiskies, the tasting notes would probably be very, very similar, if not the same, but the texture or the mouthfeel or the finish of the non-chill filtered would make it a better dram or make it a more enjoyable dram. Is that the case? Is it more texture than taste?
I think it really depends on the type of whiskey it is. What your what the original profile was like, Mike. So it's hard to just give a definitive answer on that, because every whiskey will have a different reaction, if you want, to it. How it manifests itself after going through a process like that. I mean, it is obviously when you consider it, it is quite an intrusive process. A lot of the proteins and whatever, you're losing a lot of that along the way. So absolutely, you're going to lose some of the taste to a lesser or greater degree. Texture, absolutely.
I think the best way to answer that is that if you were to put water into a non-chill filtered whiskey, you change the flavour profile and you bring out flavours. Whereas if you put water into a chill filtered whiskey, you kill it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of answers the question of it. I think it's all about taste and texture.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of one of these questions too, I mean, there's so many aspects, and there's probably a lot of aspects that, a lot of people don't really realise, concerning whiskey and distilleries and whatever. So it's one of these aspects that obviously it's like age. Everyone focuses on age and what you're saying, colour potentially and non-chill filter and strength. There's a lot of different aspects there, but maybe not so much strength. But a lot of a lot of people focus on these same questions. And when you consider the whole process, there's so many variables. There really is. So many different things that can happen and it can change, and you could subtly change. It really has a huge impact, but no one would really get. So, but yeah, it's obviously one of these things. It's colouring and non-chill filter are obviously hot topics and always have been, I guess, and always will be.
I say long live Glen Scotia, as far as I'm concerned. And I did have a sort of interesting question, I think, and it's maybe a really hard one to answer. And I certainly wouldn't want your bosses to think you want to work somewhere else. But if Glen Scotia didn't exist, and you were looking to go and get a job doing what you're doing in another distillery across the country, is there anywhere you think, gosh, I'd like to have a go at that, or that's a nice place, or I like the look of that distillery, or I like that whiskey, I'd like to try and make it?
Oh my goodness, that's difficult. I mean, for me, as I say, I'm kind of spoiled. The job I do, so it's as I say, I've got a lot of freedom, and it's always really been like that since day one. Even when I started with very, very little technical knowledge, I've always had the freedom. So it would be kind of hard for me to go to somewhere where, I was potentially, I wouldn't say pigeonholed, but
I kind of thought you were going to say that. We've asked other people that, and they've usually had a somewhere they've kind of always hankered after having a go at and stuff. But I had a pretty strong feeling you were going to say, "Nah, I'm just going to stay here."
Absolutely. You never say never, because life's incredibly interesting, and you don't know what can happen. But
your own one, start up your own distillery in Campbeltown, and
that something like that would probably, it probably need to be along these lines, because as I say, I'm really, really lucky with the Loch Lomond Group and the way they've been with me, and obviously the distillery in general. So we pretty much just get on with it, and we know what we've got to do, and obviously a lot of communication. At least once a year. So that's as I say, it's constant, and as I say, the marketing team and the sales guys and my boss is Bill White. So they've all been fantastic. They really are, and I think everyone's really proud of Glen Scotia. The way it's kind of turned out. So yeah, it's something that I think is good for the industry. It's good for Campbelltown. And it gives everyone another dimension. So
I suppose we can't not mention the 25-year-old.
Yes.
We have to mention that. I said we were going to plug Glen Scotia, but I think we've done a pretty poor job of not plugging it.
We're always the same though. We can't help it. We're fanboys, so we can't help it.
Well, I was going to try and hide that sign there. It's obviously Glen Scotia sign. My elbow no reach. But no, yeah, I mean that's it's kind of hard to comprehend. Really, it really is. How Glen Scotia could obviously win the best whiskey in the world 2021. As I say, when you think back to 2008. Occasionally you get a die-hard visitor who would turn up at the gates, and they would educate me about Glen Scotia, this bottling and that bottling and green dumpy bottles, etc., to where we are now. It's been remarkable. But I think it's industry. I think it's the people that's involved in the industry. I think it's the customers, the visitors, the guys like yourself. The whiskey shops, the online presence. Everything is obviously. Has helped everybody, and it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. So
I think you're right in saying it's the way the industry is going, but obviously, places like Glen Scotia, who are doing things so fantastically, producing such wonderful whiskies, are actually shining above the others, because there's a lot of new distilleries on the go that have come along with a bit of kind of a lot of publicity and stuff that I've kind of felt have been a bit underwhelming, and just kind of gone back into the kind of the background a bit again. But your Glen Scotias, Glen Cadams, places like that are just kind of starting to rise above, because the quality is there, and because the industry is growing and it's a bit more out there, people are becoming more aware of it.
I mean, probably, and probably with Glen Scotia, Russell, it's been there. It's been there since 1832. Absolutely, it's some awful owners, away 30, 40 years ago, which done it no favours for sure. But yeah, it's obviously it's a survivor, and I guess it wants to be what it is. So yeah, and that I guess it's like back to the football again. I guess that's what happens when you get a good team. You get a good team, then you can do wonderful things. So, yeah. incredibly humble.
But a beating heart, and you need that in a distillery, don't you? It has to. If it's got a beating heart and a good team, then you're going to do great things.
That's right, and I think it is, and I think it's important that you have that, you have that passion, whether it's me or whether it's the guys in the stills, because that passion obviously means that you're dedicated and you're on the ball and everything's as it should be. So I think that's really, really important, and it really does help, as we can see obviously what happened at Glen Scotia. So. Yeah, and it's as I say, for me, obviously the San Francisco, was just crazy.
Yeah. I think there's a huge pride. I mean, I think I only know a handful of people from Campbeltown. One of my former colleagues from years ago, but the pride from the area of actually being from Campbeltown just shines through. From everyone I've actually met from the area, and I know people are proud of where they come from, but there's something about you guys from Campbeltown. Your pride is really, really evident.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's and I think it's probably something Campbelltown's obviously had hard times in the past. It's from the glory days, which obviously none of us can remember. It's long past into annals of whiskey history. Whiskey, too much whiskey.
Yes, I did. We understood you. Don't worry.
So I think obviously the hard times. It's probably, and it's the same for a lot of towns in Scotland. But I think these hard times make you quite clannish and proud of where you come from and what it's all about. And yeah, Campbeltown obviously has a lot of that, which is wonderful. Whether it's someone that works in Glen Scotia or Springbank or Glengyle or whatever, I think everyone's proud of what they do. It's small teams, and Springbank's obviously slightly bigger than Glen Scotia, but yeah, there is that element. There is that element in Campbeltown, which is fantastic. It really is. It's a certainly something that's got a lot of potential, and I think there's a lot more to come from Campbeltown.
Right. Well, let's hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got Alistair Gray's. He didn't get the memo at the start. He's just joined us, sipping in a Glen Scotia from Calendar's Drink Company, finished in PX and Blether. What Alistair didn't hear at the start was if you name the drink that you're drinking, then you have to send the three of us a dram of it.
That's right. that's right. Alistair's good for sharing a dram, to be fair, so we don't.
You get them in the boat.
Right. That's a lovely drum, that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It really is. Whether it's a Glen Scotia or whether it's a Springbank or whatever, that's what it's all about. Have a drum and get the crack. It's wonderful. That's that's why I think I mentioned the whiskey club. It's an official whiskey club that I sometimes go to with the guys. Wonderful guys. But that's what I really like about it, is because you can relax and just catch up with people and try different drams, and there's no they don't need to listen to me all night, so that's half the battle, I think. So it's good.
Guys, love sitting listening to you tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jeremy Moss just popped up with he's drinking Loch Dew. So I think he's trying to get rid of his drams by sending.
I'll send you a bottle.
Alistair's no bother. I'll drop you off on Monday. So I'll give you a wee drama the 11-year-old Alistair when you're in on Monday. So we swap there for you.
That's it. It's good. It's good. It really is good. And it's that's the wonderful thing of whiskey. Share a dram.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing better, and we get through the shop. We obviously meet a lot of people, and if you're a couple of guys, wanting to share drams, and they'll post you, and you post them back, and it's just such a great way of trying. As you say, you go into a bar, you want to try something different, not the same thing. It's just such a great community. Everyone seems willing to share a dram. It's not.
It's exactly that. It's you look at your bottle and you think, who could I give a bit of this to? It's the only thing you ever buy. You wouldn't buy a steak and think, who could I give it? You'd be thinking, that's mine. You're not going to share that with anybody. But you buy a dram and you think, who do I need to to share this? Who do I need to make sure they've tasted this? You know?
Well, that's right. And I'll actually see these. I mean, I'm not going to show you all, but that's exactly that. See that what's in that bottle?
Yep.
What's in that bottle? You know, and I've got about 4 or 5 bottles like that, and that's exactly that scenario. You know, they've obviously given the bottles to try the drams, you know, and that's wonderful. You know, and that's, you know, I'm like that, right? Okay, what do I need to get? You know, I need to get them drams, obviously, try back and get something different and see what they think of that. So, and it's wonderful. It really is, you know, and it's the beauty of whiskey, I think. You know, obviously trying the different drams, and some you'll like, some you'll not like. Some you'll.
Do you think you'd have been a fan if you hadn't got into the industry? Do you think you would have been as big a fan of whiskey?
I think, as I say, it was mainly the historical and, as I say, the engineering side. I guess it's kind of grown on me, the real, and obviously through work, I think, obviously, really, you know, obviously working with Glen Scotia through the years really has put me into the, you know, I want to come and be on your side, you know. I want to come and visit the distilleries, and I want to do the tasting. So that's the kind of stage I'm at now. You know, I really want to go and experience.
Let me out.
Yes, absolutely. Probably not, and it's probably something that's grown on me that you know, that I think it's absolutely wonderful. You know, I think you're getting all the fun.
We are getting a lot of fun, actually, to be fair.
I'm seeing this at my side, and I'm thinking, right, I want a shot of some of that now.
Sometimes it is hard.
I would say we could swap for a day, but that might be a disaster for Glen Scotia. So we'll not do that.
No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine.
I'm just going to go mute and jump out for a second.
Yep, brilliant.
Dogs barking there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be a complete and utter disaster if you got meat. I've only just in the last little while managed to master the till in the shop. I think.
Well, I've got to say, that's a challenge for me too, as a till in the shop. So yeah, I know where you're coming from.
I'd never. The last time I worked in a shop before working with Mike was a hospital shop and a psychiatric hospital when I first started working back in 1982. And there was like a kind of tuck shop in a hospital where staff and patients would go and get their basically fags and sweeties and juice, I think was all that was ever purchased. But it was one of these proper old-fashioned tills where the thing came up when you pressed the number. And so the computer side of things was a disaster. And then, of course, we do the DPD packages as well. So like I'm supposed to work this little machine as well, like, and yeah. I think Janice still thinks I'm probably pretty useless, but she's trying her best. She's trying her best to get me efficient.
It's an age thing. It's an age thing. I shouldn't say that, but it is, because I know, talking from experience. We've actually, believe it or not, we've actually got one of these tills, but it's not what it seems in the distillery, the visitor centre. So this is an old till that came out a chemist, I think it was, something along these lines. And yeah, you know, you obviously press the keys, you know, very mechanical. You press the keys and it came up with 2 and 6 or, you know, whatever from that era. But in front of it and plugged in, we've obviously got the till, and it operates as a cash register, but the till doesn't actually operate. We've actually got an iPad cheating there. So people will come in, they'll see the till, oh, wonderful till, and then they'll
go through the iPad.
You've got an iPad. Oh, you cheat.
I was thinking the only thing that's helped me work in the shop at all was playing darts years ago. I can actually count backwards. So I can give you your change. That's me.
Well, that's it. You know, and it's no, I think it's, you know, it's all part of the experience. You know, because I mean, even the visitor centre, it's really a shop. You know, at Glen Scotia. You know, that was all developed into, it's 2 areas, but you know, it's more or less just kind of, you know, the shop area and a small office. But when you look back, you know, it was 3 different areas. You know, it was an old customs office, which was the gable end. There was a middle reception area, which was obviously 60s, 70s would have been a receptionist there. And then there was a manager's office. When I started, I used to sit in the reception area, you know, in the small customs officers' area, tartan carpet, and it had wood panelled bits and pieces, and it had, well, at that time there was only one bottle of Glen Scotia, the 12-year-old, which was quite random, really. Some Little Mills, 12-year-old Little Mills, my goodness, a few of these now would be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's amazing, it's amazing how it develops into something nice. So you need to visit. You need to visit. If
definitely, absolutely, definitely coming down. We'll probably have a minibus load. There's a few guys want to come and tour with us, so
just let me know what weekend you're coming down, will you?
So you can take your holidays.
That's terrible.
You'll easily know by the time we get to Loch Gilphead, the drums will be going because the van's emblazoned with Inverurie Whisky Shop. So, there'll be people up in Loch Gilphead phoning you. That's them on their way now.
Oh, I'm away. I need to go.
Everybody will be on the boats and away. That's it. Out.
As long as you leave the keys somewhere, we can get them.
Well, that's it. You want to be the first group of visitors. Desperate to get locked in the Dunwich warehouse. No, just leave me here. I'm fine here.
That's not for about 5 years.
Come back for them. That's it. My goodness, quite happy. I'll be happy anyway.
Sorry, I just had my brother was around picking up some stuff, and I told him to come after it. Did you pick up on Jeff's question there?
No. I was just going back to we were talking about tackling tills and getting to know technology, and me trying to please Janice and failing miserably with not being a good pupil, not picking up all the stuff she's trying to learn me. But yeah.
So there's Scott there. Hello, Scott. Say hello to Scott. Yeah, I mean, Jeff's question, in particular, single cask in the last couple of years. And it's funny, and the ones I've shown you here, are obviously the three I used are all cask finishes, and Tamara mentioned one. Do you know some of the best, I think, of Glen Scotias are some of the simplest. It could just be a bourbon cask, or it could be a refill cask, and I think they really, really work well. It doesn't need to be too fancy. It doesn't need to be some, elongated affair. Obviously, working with different casks. They're wonderful. Some of them, don't get me wrong, absolutely. But some of the best are just, the simplest. Just a first fill bourbon. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Really conveys that what you need to convey. That Campbeltown style, that Glen Scotia style. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of some
spirit in a bourbon cask, don't you? The kind of unique spirit, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And there was actually I did a master distillers edition. It was just a refill American oak. So again, it wasn't fancy. So a hogshead cask, and yeah, it's the flavors there, and sometimes it's really it's uninhibited, if you like. If the strength's right. And all these fantastic tropical fruits, really old, and by old tropical fruits, a lot of that kind of 60s kind of influence coming through there. There's certainly that style and that era, which you get with a lot of that refill American oak, refill Scottish hoggies, if you like, that kind of ilk. And I think it's really, really wonderful, and interesting. But again, that's just my style. It's not everyone's cup of tea, so. But yeah, some of these are really good. Simplicity. Yeah.
Yeah, simple always works. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Douglas got a good question there. Just he'd planned a trip to Campbeltown last year. It was sadly put a kibosh because of COVID, as a lot of our plans were last year. So he's hoping to visit soon. Just wondering if you've got plans to open for tours anytime soon. Is that going to happen this year, or are we looking at next year?
I don't know. It'd be nice to think we could get something going maybe about September time. I mean, Roseanne's she's moved away. She's working in Wales now with in the Welsh Wind. I think I've got that right there. So she's working with them in Wales. So we're just in the process of starting a new girl back. Someone who was with us 2 years ago, young Hannah. Hannah was at the time finishing her degree and worked with Kintyre Gin and such like. So we're lucky enough that she's coming back to work with us. So once we get Hannah in, and obviously everything else that's going on at the moment, once we get all that sorted out and hopefully get someone else started, then we'll probably be in a better position, to obviously, even get some kind of tasting sorted out and potentially look at tours. So it's been a kind of, for us, it's been quite, it's not even obviously been the COVID aspect, which is bad enough, but it's obviously, changing over to Hannah. So, but yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. Hopefully September, I think, is a short answer. Really,
sometime soon. We've got a much discussed and much anticipated potential plan to Islay. With the van or 2 vans or maybe a convoy sometime soon. So I think we maybe need to make it a fortnight and go down to the peninsula first and pop over to Arran and then find our way. We might not actually leave Campbeltown. Actually, we might end up there for 2 weeks. you never know. We'll just tell the guys it was Islay. They'll never know the difference.
Have you seen these? You see 3 minibuses here? No, never seen them. No.
The other thing is, the more minibuses we take, the more drivers we're going to have to.
Well, I know that's a problem. Yeah.
That's a tricky one, isn't it? Who's driving?
I don't fancy being in a coach because I've driven that road down to Campbeltown, and it was bad enough in a minibus, let alone a coach.
Oh, I no, that's it. It's not for the. Well, I mean, it's probably a lot better now than what it used to be, but no, it's still quite a drive, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
Long and winding road, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you're going to do that, you go to Islay, you got to come to Campbeltown. Absolutely, it'd be good to go and see Scott and Arn in Lag. And Lochranza. So yeah, absolutely. That's a must. It really is. So.
Depending how drunk you guys are, we could just tell them Arran was Islay. Just just go to both distilleries about 8 times and say that. Change the name outside.
Can you mind been there? Oh, I don't know.
Show the photos of our bag and
that's right.
They can drink Macklemore and we'll be fine.
That's it. It's but no, I mean, it's wonderful, isn't it? And you're making me jealous again talking about all these trips.
Well, listen, book your holidays, we'll pick you up. Listen, we'll come to Campbeltown first, get your holidays, get in the bus, and we'll take you over to Islay.
I was hoping you'd say that. I've got my case parked.
You're absolutely more than welcome.
And if 2022 could be, we've been looking in and across the drinks industry as retailers, aside from hospitality, have done well in the last, and we're so lucky because so many other guys haven't done so well. But I think 2022 for a visitor aspect, for getting people back, so many people have had the Campbeltown Festival cancelled, the Face cancelled, Speyside cancelled, everything. They're chomping at the bit to get back to distilleries to do the tours. I think it's potentially it could be the biggest year, I think, for visitors coming to distilleries.
I absolutely, Mike, and it's actually something that, dare I say, it frightens me a little bit because I've been that busy. One thing and another. If it's my dear wife.
I thought that might be
when I come to.
Of course you can, Shelley. Of course you can.
We need somebody to drive the bus.
I was going to say I'll probably drive then, boys. Sorry, Shelley. Sorry.
I'm all sorry, actually, man.
It's in the next.
But no, I think obviously. And as I say, it's been incredibly busy. And I often say that to Hector. I say it's really, really busy, isn't it? Without even visitors. How did we manage before? And that's something that if we do, exactly what you say, Mike. And I think there's there's certainly an element of truth in that. It is going to be really busy, I think, you know, because people are desperate, not even from the UK, you know, and obviously worldwide.
Yes,
which is fantastic because, as you say, you know, it's not even the distilleries, it's the hotels, it's everything in between. You know, it's the whiskey shops, it's the buses, everything. So, yeah, it's something we should be, you know, grateful for. I guess, you know, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I really hope it. You know, as long as the confidence is there and the travel's there, and touch wood, that's us. At the light at the end of the tunnel now is getting ever closer. But let's hope.
Yeah,
I really think it could be a bumper year. And
I think,
you know, I think that over the last, you know, guys like yourself have been able to shine, whereas people haven't maybe known you so well up until, and you know, people are always worried whether they're buying in a shop or buying online of trying something different because they had to buy the full bottle.
Yeah.
Whereas this virtual experience we've had in the last 18 months has really opened people up because they're taking a punt on Glen Scotia, on Glencadam, on Ardnamurchan, on all these kind of lesser known distilleries and say, well, we'll try a nip of it, we'll try a taste and set, we'll go on. And it's giving them confidence in that. So to be able to get that in-person experience now is the next step, I think.
I think so, and it's obviously something I think it will continue, and I think it's something that's important. You know, if you're obviously at a distillery, you know, and you've obviously got the, you know, the position, dare I say, then you should be making yourself available. You know, you should have time to obviously, you know, communicate with people and speak to people and give them some of your time, because after all, it's it's all these individuals who are buying your product, you know, and it's
you'll be held to that, Ian. You're going to become a tour guide.
Oh, well, that's it. A step up the level for me, absolutely. But yeah, you know, it's a given. It is a given, you know, and that's the way it should be, you know, absolutely. You know, it's as I say, you know, and I keep going back to it, you know, I distinctly remember Glen Scotia when there was no visitors, there was nothing, you know, and that ilk, so, and it wasn't that long ago. So yeah, you've got to be grateful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Scott's coming on and said he could talk about whiskey and wood with yourself for days.
Yes, absolutely, Scott. Yeah, great guy, absolutely. Yeah, he's you know, he's wonderful guy. You know, he really is. He's got a lovely passion for it too. You know, and does a wonderful job in the industry. So, yeah, he's really, and you know, Scott's one of these people, you know, you meet in life, and you know, you just know he's just a kind-hearted soul. You know, he really is a genuine person. So yeah, wonderful, and he does a wonderful job, and he always makes the time to come and see you too. So yes, he does a great job. And that's the beauty of whiskey, though, isn't it, guys?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah. You know, the passion and the knowledge just now is unreal. You know, we get people coming in, and you know, we're not at the level of, you know, working 24 hours in the production side of it, but you know, some of the guys we had coming in, we learned from, you know, and it's, you know, I think Charlie McLean said to us once is, you know, one of the beauties is, it was Dave Stewart, wasn't it? He always learns. Every day's a learning day. And I think you have to be open, even if you've been in the industry 50, 60 years like David has, you have to be open to learn. One of the most off-putting things you can is somebody who thinks they know everything. For us as a shop, we learn as much from the customers as we tell other customers, you know, and you have to be open to that.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with that. And that I was exactly the same situation, and I'm still in that situation. You know, because you'll especially with tasting notes and such, like, you know, you'll have, you know, it could be someone that walks off the street, you know, and you don't know who they are, and you don't know what, you know, what they know about whiskey, and it's actually when you get, you know, speaking to someone like that, you know, you think, wow, absolutely. There's one, and I can't really mind her name. She was a young lassie from Germany, I was doing a tasting in the warehouse with it was a group, and we'll go through these different casks, and it always sticks in my mind. I thought, my goodness, you're better on this than me, dear. You're absolutely wonderful here. You know what you're picking out, and that's right. Yeah, I said, yeah, no, you're right again there. Yeah, yeah. And I thought, and it's remarkable, and there's so many people, and he's right. He's absolutely spot on. And there's not many industries, I think, that obviously admit that. A lot of industries probably they are where they are, and I know it all. I'm chairman, I'm managing whatever, and but I think it's quite refreshing when people like that, David, say pass comments like that, because that's exactly how I learned, so much. Obviously you learn a lot from your mentors, you learn a lot from reading textbooks, technical textbooks, all the rest of it. But there's a huge part of the learning process that you do learn. You do learn from conversation, from groups like this, and from random conversations or tastings or whatever, that you pick up so much, and it's invaluable. It really is invaluable part of the learning process and understanding about whiskey, I think. So yeah, a very, very good point, Mike.
It's almost like the kind of quantity versus quality thing. When you're reading textbooks and you're learning about process, you're learning the kind of almost the kind of quantity kind of side of things, but the quality comes from being immersed with people. Yeah. Conversations. That's where all the kind of quality comes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it could even be, it could even be an idea. It doesn't need to be something that you never actually knew. It could just be a perception or an idea actually makes you think, and makes you think, no, that's right enough. Why did I never think of that? Why did I never do that? And I think that's, that's important too. And it could come from your peers, your team members, wherever, just a guy in the production, who obviously mention something or point something out potentially, and it obviously makes you think. Yeah.
From a customer on a tour, say, have you tried this? You're like, actually, I'll take a mental note of that and I'll come back and see that.
Yeah, all the time, and there was, I think, when we done such things, there was always a week when, and again, probably before the pandemic hit, I was getting less and less with the tours, I was obviously more doing managers tours, but it was getting to the point where you would pick so much up, and it was just different aspects, different approaches, and as I say, different ideas, and it is wonderful. And I think any person who doesn't or who isn't open to the suggestion that that you can't learn from anyone else, and then it's not going to work for them, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Janice, who works in the shop with us, her husband has a group called unofficial whiskey band group called the Buckled Wheel Club.
I love it.
The Buckled Wheel Club is
we've all been buckled a few days of it.
More than one wheel buckled too. Why we got the name, but they're all engineers. So we took them on a tour we ended up in Ballindalloch, Glen then Ballindalloch, and they were all about the pipes and the engineering and how all that works. And as a kind of completely uneducated in engineering or anything DIY or plumbing, completely, listening to these questions, I'm like, how's the guy going to know that? But give him his due, Brian. He knew everything. He was part of the fabric of the startup of the distillery. So it's when you're listening to that, you think it's not just the end product that people are passionate about. They're passionate about how it gets there. And so that's a whole kind of opened my eyes to a side of the industry that I never even kind of really thought about before. But engineering or that process is just
and it's fascinating, and it's probably one of the main aspects I really took to whiskey as well. I think with Glen Scotia was that engineering side. Obviously the looking at different pieces of equipment. And as you say, it was, it could be something as obviously the 2 brewing tanks used to be inside. We moved them outside, which was quite a, well, logistically it was quite a nightmare, but engineering wise it was obviously challenging too, with pipe runs and pipes and everything in between. Same with the washbacks, moving the washbacks, changing them over from corton steel to stainless steel and adding another 3. And it was, and changing condensers, changing bits of stills, half a still and main arms, and it could, it doesn't even need to be something that sounds quite impressive like changing washbacks. It could be something quite minuscule and insignificant potentially, that is sometimes the most interesting, whether it's repairing the plates and the mash tun, so
I totally get that. I could get excited about putting a new bracket onto something. And I was just aware that while you're both fully aware, sometimes I reveal a little bit too much about myself, and my cycling shaving legs and stuff like that. The last time we had a chat was, but I was driving. Gosh, where was I going? I must have been going into Aberdeen for something. I was taking my daughter for her COVID jab, so I was going down the Joe Casway into Aberdeen, and there was a couple of lorries, big wide loads, heading out west into Speyside country with old stills that must have been taken out from a distillery. And I just found myself, I was like almost wanted to stop and follow them to see where they were going. But the other thing I should reveal about tonight is Mike and I had a clandestine meeting to pass over some samples that I forgot to take him yesterday. While I was waiting for you, Mike, there was an absolutely fantastic looking Valtra tractor went past. Beautiful, lovely shade of racing green. I was like, oh. So yeah, I love all those things. I mean, even seeing a tractor in a distillery and thinking, oh, are they moving barrels with that, or are they shifting draft with it, or
yeah. I think I'm going well with you, Russell. And I've got to say, even that aspect, I was lucky enough when I started at Glen Scotia, and he's still working there, but probably it is to a lesser extent now. There was a wonderful local engineer called Mr. Hector Thompson, and Hector started in industry in 1962, and his first job was as a boy, and the company was called Gordon Stewart & Co., and he put in the boiler into Springbank, heavy oil boiler at that time. So that was 1962. So when I started, Hector did a lot of the work, did a lot of not the major stuff, but as I say, the small repairs, and it was, I loved it, absolutely loved it, because it was, you learned so much from him, but it was, he could tell you, where things were previously, and he says there used to be an old boiler over in the corner there, and it kind of ties in with certain articles that Angus was finding, digging up in the local newspapers. Yeah, it's wonderful, and that's I guess that's the journey, but when you're lucky enough to have people like that there, and same with Jim, the stillman, he could, he would have the stories of the way things were, and obviously what they were doing, at the time, and
it absolutely is that. It's the art of storytelling. I mean, that's the whole thing. I love history, and I love speaking to people who've actually been there and giving you first-hand accounts of what it was like. And then you can then see it as time goes on, and they maybe pass, and you become the older one, and you're kind of passing on the story to the younger ones, and yeah, it's fantastic.
That's right.
Well, yeah.
There's always a story that sticks in my mind, and I might have enhanced it ever so slightly over the years.
Good. That's what you should do.
It's pretty much what Jim told me. Jim, as a boy, his dad used to work at Glen Scotia. So Jim's, what will he be now, 70, 76, 77, something like that now. So he's retired a few years back. But Jim says as a boy, he used to come in with his into Glen Scotia with his dinner for his dad. Obviously, you go and take your daddy's dinner. He's working in the stills the night round the corner at Glen Scotia. So he must have done that one night, but there was obviously some occasion next door, and next door to Glen Scotia was what was Lochruin Bonded Warehouse, it's a furniture storage place now, but it's still, it's still got its rough shape. Really, it's kind of outline. But he says they were in this bonded warehouse, and the customs officers were there, 2 of them, I think. And his dad must have been in there or something. So he ended up in there, and the disc cask of Lochruin whiskey, which was obviously stored in this Lochruin bonded warehouse. And I reckon this would probably be the kind of, probably the early 60s, very early, late 50s, early 60s, probably late 50s if he was quite young. But anyway, the disc cask of Lochruin whiskey, and the discussion was, or what Jim told me, and obviously came out later, was it belonged to a local minister who's since passed on, so they'd no owners for it. So the disc cask of Lochruin whiskey, and customs officers, right, we need to pour that down the drain. We've got no legal owners for it.
God.
So the whiskey went down the drain because the minister was gone.
They went through with it.
That's it.
Was there nobody down below the tank and below the drain?
I know.
The thing is there ever a more heartbreaking story than that?
That's terrible.
I know. I still look at that wall and think, God.
You think I'll buy it, Jim? I'll buy it. Sell it to me for a £5.
It was my uncle. He was my uncle, honest. I'll prove it later.
It's a wee bit early for ghost stories, but Ian, David's saying was there not a story about a ghost in Glen Scotia of an old distiller?
Yeah, that there was, and that's actually one I heard even before I had any association with Glen Scotia, and it's quite a remarkable story too, really. It's quite sad in certain respects, but there was a. Obviously, Glen Scotia, 1832, it pretty much waited in the same hands up until the end of the 19th century. But 1893 or whatever, I think, changed hands. And it was Mr. Duncan McCallum, who was a famous Campbeltown distiller. And he obviously bought Glen Scotia, Kinloch Distillery, Glen Nevis, Ardlissa, which were in Glebe Street. At that time, so he was he was a self-made man. He started off as a clerk, I think, when he was 14, and he obviously done very well for himself. Obviously had one of the Campbeltown mansions. It was a really kind, genuine kind of guy. A famous story when he was coming home in the steamer, First World War era. He bought all the returning servicemen their dinner, just to say thank you for their obviously. The sacrifices that are obviously still going through at that time. But no, 1931, he, for some unknown reason, he was in his 80s, I'm guessing 84, 85, something like that. Christmas Eve, he left his house at Eastcliff. He walked up the back of the house, up to Crosshill Loch, and drowned himself. And the story always went, the story I heard before was he was tricked out a large sum of money, but there was never anything like that. There was never any financial irregularities or anything like that. He left something like 200,000 in 1931, which was a huge sum then, probably a millionaire, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, he's obviously meant to haunt Glen Scotia. He's meant to be in Glen Scotia.
Maybe this was cast.
Well, that's I'll say to Shelley, that's when that Lochruin cast. But I'll and I've mentioned that to Shelley before, my wife. I've said this. There's been one or two folks seen this ghost down here. There was an occasion when a fella was in years ago working, big fella, it's up the top of the mill, and he was obviously repairing bits and pieces, and he came out terrified, and he wouldn't go back in. And there's been a few folk. There's a local fella too who used to work in there. I'm speaking to him quite recently actually, and he would just get in the mill and back out. He wouldn't actually sit there. And I'll say to Shelley, I would say to her, years ago, I says, see this ghost, I've been down there and well, I wonder what what do you think of this ghost? This is meant to be down there. And Shelley's reply to me was, Ian, even if the ghost was there, you wouldn't see him because you'd walk probably straight by him.
David saying it's good to have a good spirit from Glen Scotia. We've already got good spirit from Glen Scotia. We don't need the spooky ones, David.
That's absolutely. It's no, it's good. As I say, and it's all part of the history, isn't it? You know, and it's remarkable. It really is. You know, it's remarkable. Some of the characters that's came and went. So wonderful.
Absolutely. Darren's looking forward to 2 weeks on a Whiskey 2. He says it sounds ideal. I'm thinking I'm not sure who for. Maybe the GI guy who's going to sort out our livers when we get back.
We could, the first week, and then we'll get the punters to drive for the second week if we're going for that long.
I think you probably need to buy properties in Campbeltown and Islay and places like that, so you can obviously just crash pad, wouldn't it?
Well, going back to a football analogy, it's a bit like going away to Argentina for the World Cup in 1978. I don't think anybody came home from there. There's a whole lot of people that ended up living in Argentina.
That's when Messi came about, wasn't he?
There was a host of people stayed there.
Aye, that's
just
right.
Messi's dad.
I didn't need to get back in the first place. I thought, forget it.
I know.
It's the watershed. Yeah, I've got to be careful I don't get bleeped out. But yeah, no, I'll just stay.
But I can mind watching a programme about that a few years ago, and there was a guy, and I think he met his girlfriend out there, and I think I don't think she came back straight away, but they kept in touch, and eventually she came over and they get married and such like.
It was 1978, a love story, I think it was. I remember watching it because the supporters were actually hailed when they come off the coaches like they were the team.
Well, that's it. No, the team just went home. They come off the bus, and come off the plane, and just went home. I think.
The team were too busy taking inhalers and stuff. That was the problem with the team. Really just
before the supporters got off the plane, weren't they? That was unbelievable. You know, it was probably one of the first World Cups I actually remember was Argentina. You know, and it was it was.
It was magical. It was that kind of crackly. I'm so disappointed with the sort of European stuff these days when even a place like Kazakhstan or something there's a game live because the sound is crystal clear. I mean, it should be grainy. You should hardly be able to see the picture, and it should be this kind of crackly commentary because that's proper. Like, oh my god, that's far away. You know, that's like miles away. It sounds like they're talking into a can. You know,
that's right. That's the way it was.
That's what Argentina was like. Yeah.
I can mind, you know, especially when I was brought up in Carradale, you know, and I can actually mind when they put the TV mast up, and I think before that it used to come from Darvel, I think it was Darvel, you know, in Ayrshire, but they obviously put this mast up, and this, I'm no expert, but it must have been a kind of temporary or intermediate or a feeder mast or something like that. But once this mast went up, it was Nirvana, because before that it was the old H.
Yeah,
you call them aerials. You know,
you had to kind of turn the knob on your TV to get the tune in.
It was even out turning the aerial. You know, you had to turn the aerial, and you get it a certain bit.
If you stood up to go to the toilet, you ruined the signal. Once you get a signal, that was it. You couldn't move. Like nobody actually moved. Nobody breathed.
It reminds me of the Mr. Bean in the hotel room when he leaves all his clothes on the
You see, you're young enough to see this as comedy, Mike. Ian and I actually lived through this.
I know it was unbelievable when you think back. You know how things have advanced. You know, it was certainly different. You know, and that's the way it was. You never knew anything. You know, some people actually up in the area where I lived, you know, they never had TVs because you couldn't get a picture. You know, it just wasn't possible at that time. So, lucky enough, I wasn't. Nearly never had a TV, but kind of had a TV. So.
I was born and brought up in the Highlands, so we did have a TV with the 3 channels. So BBC Two was on the go by then, but it was black and white. And the big events of the year used to be the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah.
Miss World, and It's a Knockout final, and we used to go. The gamekeeper stayed in the lodge. Used to have a colour TV, and the whole of the Glen used to descend on his house to watch the Eurovision Song Contest and Miss World and stuff.
It's quite amazing. I mean, It's a Knockout. That was fantastic. You know, when I was great. It was absolutely brilliant. It's again, not everyone will remember that. You know, and it's fascinating. I can always remember too, and it sticks in my mind. There was a farm. It was further up Carradale Glen, you know, but there was a farm and this must have been the late 70s, but they must have had the first microwave. And we went to see an egg getting cooked in a microwave. Absolutely wonderful.
The best colour TV ever.
I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
That was just amazing. Come on, you need to come and see this microwave. Wow.
Yeah. Oh.
That was it. That was the era. You know, that was the highlight of my life.
Oh, fantastic.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well,
getting our first microwave, and it was late 80s, I suppose. I was just fascinated by the noise of it, but they kept it in the fridge, top of the fridge, and I wasn't tall enough to see it, so I just kind of was looking up.
The thing, as I say, things have changed, you know, and you do take it for granted, you know. I take everything for granted, you know, and it's not that I lived in the Victorian era, you know, things weren't that hard or bad, but it's amazing how things have, you know, developed. You know, it really has. Fantastic pace of notes, which is remarkable.
Even travel and stuff like that, you know, better roads and stuff like that, and yeah, I mean, you know, traveling the length of Scotland once upon a time was a serious undertaking. But it's very, very easy now. We've got the peripheral route around Aberdeen now, which makes it ridiculously quick to get to beyond Stonehaven, whereas before it used to take you an hour and a half to get through Aberdeen. So yeah, the advancement of stuff, yeah. You forget. Do you forget?
When I came down to Campbeltown for the Campbeltown Festival and the Springbank School, going from Aberdeenshire through Deeside, through the Cairngorms, rather than skirting round to Perth and using the main road, it's the most beautiful road to go through. You from Aberdeenshire to Campbeltown, I think you won't get, because you get everything. You get the sea, you get the rolling kind of green hills of Grampian, and you get the Munros of Cairngorms, and then you get the beautiful back to kind of greenery of Pitlochry and Fife, and then you get the Highland, the ruggedness of the Highlands, and then when you get to Campbeltown or the entire peninsula, the sea, the blue, you know, it's Mediterranean sea, and you just got absolutely everything.
You're right, Mike. You know, and I think we're spoiled, aren't you? You know, we're spoiled in Scotland, you know, because the scenery is wonderful. You know, it really is. You know, and you don't need to go far till it changes. You know, as you say, you do it kind of. It opens up, you know. You come down to Kintyre and it's slightly, you know, you get a lovely coastal stretch. But as you say, when you're up, you know, the kind of the Highlands there, you know, up Dalmally and that, you know, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's well, a wonderful part of the world. It really is, you know, and it's unique. You know, it's got that uniqueness to it because so many different aspects. You know, it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
We've managed to break another record tonight, Ian, and I'm not surprised because we absolutely love chatting to you. But we're well over our hour. we're chasing hour number 2. We're almost there already, which I'm absolutely fine. I mean, I assume you've maybe got other things to do, so maybe we should let you away before too long. But we've kept numbers, so people are obviously really enjoying the chat. The numbers have been high all the way through. So just a reminder to guys that are listening in, we should kind of wind up at some time tonight. So if you do have some questions you'd like to hear any of us answer, but Ian in particular, get them in just now. I'm sure we'll manage to speak some more rubbish for another 10, 15 minutes or so, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I see James there. James at God's Country, Kintyre. Absolutely. You know, hello, James. It's certainly is, you know, and it's I guess, you know, you take it for granted when you live here, but you know, it's when people obviously remind you of where you live, you know, and they visit you and you say, is that not wonderful? You know, as you say, you know, the sea and the hills on one side, and you know, even as I say, I was brought up in Carradale, and I always think Carradale's wonderful. You know, you had the beautiful valley and you had the trees. It was wooded. It was
important, whether you live in a city of Glasgow or Aberdeen or whatever, that you go out and you visit somewhere, and it might only be an hour away, and it's completely different.
Aye, yeah. Yeah.
But it's vistas. I mean, there's David talking about he feels the best part's coming over the hill at Ronican. So I'm assuming when you come over the hill, there's a bit of a vista, a bit of a view. I don't know Campbelltown, but there's certainly plenty of areas in Aberdeenshire that I used to cycle, and I'll go back to it at some point. But I know the roads and I still drive it. And you go through these kind of woody bits, and then you just get to a bit, and it's just like wow, and your eyes almost, it's almost like watching a firework. Your eyes just light up and say, "Wow, look at all this." Scotland's got so many bits like that. It's just fantastic.
It has, and I think obviously, what David says is absolutely spot on. There is an element when you do come, that hill, you're just coming down that hill, if you like, and you've kind of cut across, Clachan and such, like across Kintyre a little bit, and you're coming down that hill, down to the kind of coastal, Machair, but that kind of feel to it, then driving down the coast towards Campbeltown. Wonderful views, you see Gia and as Mike says, the sea, the way it opens up and you can see over the Islay and a wee bit of Colbrett Berry, Barkley way a little bit. So it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's
I'm not sure if it's the same, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Is if you go down to Campbelltown and you're on the left side of the bus or the car, make sure you're on the left side on the way back, because looking at both sides are both completely different. You see, you see, you got Arran on heading south, you got Arran on the left and Isla on the right, and or Jura on the right as well. You switch around, and it's just amazing.
Well, that's right. And probably the best way to appreciate it is, if you're visiting, and it's well worth it. But going down the east coast, if you like, going down to Carradale, is obviously the different side of the peninsula, and that you'll certainly see Kilbrannan Sound and Arran, and a lovely view down there. Some of the, and it's quite wild. There's a lot of ancient Atlantic woodland, oak woodland that along that, especially up near Skipness kind of area. It's all natural woodland, which is fantastic. I think a lot of that type of woodland is really in par with the Amazon rainforest. It's indigenous, it's been here for thousands of years. So I mean, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and it's really, really stunning scenery. The road is potentially not for the faint-hearted. It's a single course, challenging at bits, but it's worth it. You go down to Grogport and then down to Carradale and then down to Campbelltown. But as you quite rightly say, Mike, if you go down the other side, if you're going up the West Road or down the West Road, you do get that, as you say, Jura and Islay and Gia and that, and it's wonderful, and it's if the atmospheric conditions are just right, then it's stunning, absolutely stunning. A wonderful part of the world, and it's a journey. The journey is potentially for but you can fly, on the plane. You get a plane and such, and a ferry. Yeah,
there you go. Absolutely, sail. That's what we should do. We should actually sail from Aberdeen. Just
absolutely. Absolutely. That's
down the top. Take our life into our own hands and go over the top and then come down the other side. Yeah.
That's your budget, but we'll do 12 good rowers.
Will you be my sailing course, Mike?
The question will probably be asking, how did the guys end up in Newfoundland? Do you have any idea? Don't ask me, I don't know. They were coming to
you said we were going to Glen Scotia, not Nova Scotia.
That's it. I know that's part of the fun, isn't it? Part of the journey.
If you're that friendly, they'll fly us back, no problem.
It's called deportation, Mike. No.
I don't need the handcuffs, honestly. I don't need them. I'll be fine. I'll sit in the plane. Absolutely. And it's amazing actually. Obviously it sticks in my mind, and obviously not seen them for a while. But the guys that go around in Thalassa and I think Atlantis is the other one. They obviously, I think they come out of I think they're Dutch boats. But they've got a truly international flavour on board. Guys from Holland and guys and girls from Holland and Germany and Belgium and everywhere. US and whatever, and they tend to come into Campbell. I think, I don't know if they go to Arm or not, but they tend to come into Campbelltown and go to Islay.
Is that island hopping? You did island hopping tours and stuff up the
I think a lot of these, Mike, is they tie in with the festival and such, like, you know, but they do it in other times for sure, you know, because they were actually some of the first visitors that I can actually remember, you know, coming to Glen Scotia with this. And I can always remember, you know, the fella called Wouter, and a lovely guy, Dutch fella, and he was fantastic way about him. Now, he said to me one day, you know, I've got 20 visitors, I'll bring them over to the distillery. And I'm like, oh, 20 visitors? Okay, yeah, that'll be fine, yeah, no problem. And I took these guys around. They're wonderful, wonderful people. And there was, I think it was a year or two later, he did the same again. Ian, I'll be over at the distillery. I've got the visitors here. We'll come up and visit you. I've got someone to meet you to. I says, all right, that's fine, Wouter. So up he came, and in the door came Richard Patterson. He was obviously, he was part of the, you know, he was going round with them. So Richard had an association with Glen Scotia, you know, more so the blending and the bottling side, you know, back pre-1971. So he was over in the Glebe Street. What Ardlissa and Glen Nevis became part of the bonding, the blending and bottling setup. I think in the 1930s, I think that was really set up. But Richard worked there, obviously, late 60s to early 70s. Wow. I always mind took them round, and Richard was in the tour, you know, and I thought that must be the worst tour I've ever taken, you know, because I think I was gibbering, you know. Well, Richard was trying to, obviously, you know, just to keep out of the way and whatever. And I was
keep a low profile.
I was just talking complete nonsense. So.
Just what, 3 years in the job or 4 years in the job?
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Icon coming to listen to take a tour.
Got the nose on tour.
No, it was. Richard would probably go away thinking, yeah, things have not changed here much then.
I think I'm looking up for Glen Scotia. But I would say you proved them wrong.
That's it. Brilliant.
Wow.
Well, guys, I think before the banter starts to peter out, I think it's great to end on a high.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've reached 2 hours of great chat, and
this will be the record. This is going to be forever Iain McAlister, longest ever Blether. Until the next time, and we'll make it 3 hours.
It's not gear have the fastest. We'll have the longest.
I was going to say it's fatal to ask me, right enough, because I'll often say that to Shelley. You know, I says I'm just nipping down. I'll only be 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Aye, okay.
we get the same.
Yeah. But 2 hours of fantastic chat.
Yeah, brilliant.
Whiskey, like I say, I've opened this for the first time and tried it. Wow. Yeah. There's a lot about a dram where you can enjoy it, but not overanalyze it. Normally, I would sit there and nose it and take notes and stuff. But to be able to just sit there and drink it and enjoy it, and
yeah, it's
a different kind of enjoyment when you've got good band. I always say you'll never have bad whiskey in good company.
That's true,
and it's one of the true things.
I think, you know, I think something like that is too, you know, and I think with the sherry double, you know, it's you know, it's potentially it'll appeal to many, you know, because obviously it's not too overly sherry, you know, it's still obviously got its DNA and such like there, you know, that Campbeltown influence, that bourbon influence there, so it's still got, you know, quite a accessible, I guess, flavour profile, you know, to that extent, so. Yeah, it's nice, you know. I like to, obviously, you know, any Glen Scotia, I think you really should have that, you know, that character there. You know, it really should be there. It shouldn't dominate, and I think that's important. I guess of any distillery or any region, you know, is you know, having that, conveying that distillery flavour profiles. So yeah, I think it's something that is. Something that's important, guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Will we see something similar coming out soon, like this?
Yes. So obviously next year we'll have the festival release. Again, you know, these things, the year's a blink, isn't it? You know, so you're obviously already working in these long before now. The seasonal release will obviously be released. I'm trying to think when that'll be. Don't quote me on it. I think it might be November. I'm not exactly sure, guys, but it could be slightly before that. So that'll be the seasonal release. So basically out for Christmas, slightly before.
We won't hold you to anything, don't we?
The what? Sorry, Mike?
You say we won't hold you to anything.
No, no, absolutely. So yeah, you know, so yeah, it's obviously something that is, you know, something that is quite good, you know. So they're always quite well received and something different. So yeah, it's good. It's good. Long may it continue.
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Super. Well, guys, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Ian. It's absolutely fabulous. Absolutely love talking to you. Can't wait till we can come down and share a proper dram and say hello. And yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And as I say, thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone else who's obviously present tonight. And yeah, it's been wonderful, as I say, and hopefully we can get a chance to meet up in person, you know, at the distilleries. For
sure.
We're laying down the gauntlet for next week right now. David Muir. And there's absolutely no bias from the Campbeltown.
Thanks, David. I'll make sure you get that bottle of whiskey, David.
The Campbeltown posse were on big style today.
Absolutely.
Campbeltown United.
Next week we have another Ian with an IAIN, Ian Forteeth from Glencadam, and Tom and Towell is going to be joining us next week. So I know being on Ian's tastings, he likes a chat as well. So we'll lay down the gauntlet. We'll send him this and say, this is what you've got to live with.
Absolutely. The challenge is on, Mr. Forteeth.
No pressure. That's you know what, records are there to be broken. So the only thing I'll say, though, if he breaks it, I'll just need to come back again.
Absolutely.
That will hold you to. That will definitely hold you to.
Absolutely.
Brilliant, guys.
An absolute pleasure. We'll keep Kelly waiting. We'll let you get up and see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone else. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Speak soon. Yeah, cheers, man.
Take care. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.